Hello and welcome to the Unit 4, Section 11 video on writing equations in standard form. So we have talked a little bit about writing our equations in slope-intercept form. We've even done point-slope form, and this is a third form that you will see linear equations written in. So let's go ahead and start off by just talking about what standard form looks like. So standard form is the form where we have ax plus by equals c. Okay. Now in this form, a is always going to be positive. You always lead with a positive number. You also do not want to have any fractions in this form. Okay. A, b, and c all must be whole numbers. Write the equation in slope-intercept form first. Then we're going to remove all parentheses using the distributive property. So this is particularly the case if you have minus a minus, that becomes a plus. You're going to multiply the whole equation by the denominator of the fraction. Denominator. And this will eliminate your fractions. Then we're going to get the y term by itself to start. And that's all of having it in slope-intercept form. You're going to have the y by itself. And then we are going to add or subtract the x term, depending on how you're going to move it from one side to the other. And then you're going to change all the signs if the a is negative. Okay, if your a is negative or your x term is negative. All right, so with all of that being said, let's do some examples. So in example 1, we first want to move this 5x over to the other side. So if we do that by adding 5x to both sides. And that's going to give us 5x plus y equals negative 4. And here we're already in the form. Ax plus by equals c. For number 2, first thing we need to do is multiply each side by 5. So we're going to multiply this entire equation by 5. So that's going to give us 5y equals negative 3x minus 5. Then we're going to add 3x to both sides. And that's going to give us 3x plus 5y equals negative 5. Similar for number 3, we got to multiply everything by 2 to get rid of the fraction. So that gives us 2y equals 3x minus 6. We're going to subtract 3x from each side. That's going to give us negative 3x plus 2y equals negative 6. But we can't lead with a negative, so we're going to change the sign of everything. 3x minus 2y equals positive 6. And then for number 4, we're going to multiply everything by 2. That's going to give us 2y equals x minus 2, or I should say minus 4. Let me just erase that part. Got to make sure you multiply by everything. And then we're going to subtract x from each side. In fact, let me go back and correct the previous example because I made that same error here. We should have a 12 because 2 times 6 is 12. Don't forget to multiply that last term. Okay, so now on the back to example 4, we subtract x from each side. And we have negative x plus 2y equals negative 4. And then we need to change the sign of everything because we cannot lead with a negative. So we have x minus 2y equals 4. let's go on to example 5. Here we need to get rid of our parentheses by distributing first. So we've got y minus 1 equals negative 4/7 x minus, or actually it should be plus because we're doing minus a plus, or minus a minus. And that's going to be 4 times 4 is 16 over 7. Now we're going to multiply everything by 7. So that gives us 7y minus 7 equals negative 4x plus 16. Now we need to get y by itself, so we're going to get the y term by itself by adding 7 to each side. So that gives us 7y equals negative 4x. 16 plus 7, that's going to give us plus 23. And then finally, we're going to add 4x to each side. And that gives us 4x plus 7y equals 23. And that's our standard form. For number 6, first thing we're going to do, multiply everything by 2. Y plus 2y plus 4 equals x. Then we're going to get the y by itself by subtracting 4 from each side. So 2y equals x minus 4. And then we're going to subtract x from each side. And that gives us negative x plus 2y equals negative 4. And we got to change the sign of everything. So x minus 2y equals 4. For number 7, we're going to distribute first. So we got negative 8/5 x plus 8, because negative 8/5 times negative 5 gives the positive 8. And then everything gets multiplied by 5 to get rid of the fraction. 5y plus 25 equals negative 8x plus 40. Now we're going to subtract 25 from each side to get the y term by itself. 5y equals negative 8x plus 40 minus 25 is going to give us 15. And then we're going to add 8x to each side. So we have 8x plus 5y equals 15. And then for example 8, distribute the 2. So we got 2x minus 6. Add 5 to each side to get the y term by itself. So that's going to give us 2x minus 1. And then subtract the 2x from each side. And that gives us negative 2x plus y equals negative 1. And then we flip the sign of everything so that the first term is positive. So I think that kind of gives you an idea of the process. So if we are in any other type of form, we can rearrange things to get things into the form that we want, which is standard form here. So now let's tie things back to what we did in the last couple of sections. Now we're given a point and we're given the slope, and we want to write this in standard form. Well, the first thing to do is to write this in slope-intercept form, because we're given the slope and we're given a point. Actually, we're going to write it in point-slope form. So we got y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. So we're going to plug in our y1, which is 1. Our slope is 1/2. Our x1 is 4. And so now we're going to distribute to get rid of the parentheses. 1/2 of 4 is 2. Now we're going to multiply everything by 2. So we have 2y minus 2 equals x minus 4. Then we're going to add 2 to both sides to get y by itself. X minus 2. I'm going to rewrite this up here. 2y equals x minus 2. We've got to subtract x from each side. And that gives us negative x plus 2y equals negative 2. And we have to flip the signs of everything. All right, next problem, we're going to do similarly. So we're going to do y minus negative 1, so that's going to be plus 1, equals 2/3 times x minus 1. Distribute your 2/3, you give 2/3 x minus 2/3, and we got to multiply everything by 3 to get rid of the fraction. So that gives us 3y plus 3 equals 2x minus 2. We're going to subtract 3 from each side. That gives us 3y equals 2x minus 5. And then we subtract 2x from each side. And that's going to give us negative 2x plus 3y equals negative 5. And then we have to change the signs of everything. All right, for number 11, we are given a point 5, 0. Now, if you think about it, this one is not going to be quite as much work because the 0 is going to go away. So let's do this in point slope form. Y minus 0 equals 1/5 x minus 5. That 0 goes away. We're going to distribute the 1/5. So we got 1/5 x minus 1. Then we got to multiply everything by 5. So we have 5y equals x minus 5. And then if we subtract each side by x, you get negative x plus 5y equals negative 5. And then we flip the sign of everything to get x minus 5y equals 5. Because again, you cannot lead with a negative. And then for number 12 here, we have y minus 1 equals 2 times x minus negative 3 gives us plus 3. So we're going to distribute. We are going to add the 1. And then we're going to subtract the 2x. Now that's going to give us negative 2x plus y equals 7. But we can't lead with a negative, so we're going to have 2x minus y equals negative 7. All right, now we've got 4 more examples. And in these last 4 examples, we are given 2 points, which means we're going to have to find the slope, which means we're going to have one more step than what we had before. But that's okay. We can do the steps. So let's start with the slope. And that slope is going to be y2 minus y1. So let's do 3 minus 1 over x2 minus x1, 1 minus 0. So that gives us 3 over 1, which is just 3. So now we have our slope. And if you notice in the second point, we actually have not just a coordinate, we have a y-intercept because this is the point 0, 1. So if we have a y-intercept, we can use slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. So y equals 3x, and our y-intercept is 1. So all that's left to do is subtract 3x from each side. And once we do, we have negative 3x plus y equals 1. And then we change the sign of everything. All right, let's try the next one. Again, we have to find our slope. So to find our slope, we are going to do y2 minus y1, 2 minus 3, over x2 minus x1. So that's going to give us negative 1 over negative 5, which is 1/5. So now, again, we have a y-intercept for one of our points. So let's use that to make our lives easier and go into slope-intercept form. So y equals 1/5 x plus 3, which is our y-intercept. Multiply everything by 5 to get rid of the fraction. And then subtract each side by x. So we got negative x plus 5y equals 15. Now we have to just flip the signs of everything so that our leading term is positive. And there's our equation in standard form. For number 15, again, we've got to find our slope. So we've got negative 1 minus 1, our difference in our y's, over our difference of our x's. So that's negative 2 over 5. That's our slope. Nothing more we can do to simplify that. And again, we have a y-intercept. So let's make our lives easier by using slope-intercept form. Y equals negative 2/5 x plus 1. Multiply everything by 5 to get rid of the fraction. So we got 5y minus 2x and plus 5. And then we are going to add 2x to each side. And when we do, we get our standard form equation because we already have a leading positive term. All right, our last example, just like before, we got to find our slope. So difference of our y's, so 1 plus 5. Difference of our x's, negative 2 plus 1. That's going to give us 6 over negative 1, which is negative 6. And for this one, we cannot go to slope-intercept form because we don't have a y-intercept as one of the points. So we are going to go to y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1, our point slope form. So let's use the first point. So y minus 1 equals our slope, negative 6 times x plus 2, okay? Because minus and minus gives us a plus. So y minus 1 equals negative 6x minus 12. We're going to add the 1 to each side. That gives us y equals negative 6 minus 11. We're going to add the 6x to each side. And that gives us 6x plus y equals negative 11. And we have standard form. So the big thing about standard form is just using a lot of what we've already learned and then just rearranging things into a certain order. ax plus by equals c. All right, so that finishes off this section. In the next section, we are going to talk about transformations of linear functions.